In bad weather or times of peak traffic flow, it will be most unlikely that you will be able to fly a straight-in approach to an aerodrome. Aeroplane holding procedures have been created and may be likened to temporary parking areas for aeroplanes. Obviously, aeroplanes can't stop, but they can remain in the vicinity of a radio navigation facility for as long as is required. The majority of arrivals will start from a holding pattern where the aeroplanes are stacked up, with the necessary vertical separation applied. As the bottom aeroplane departs the hold to start its approach, then the stack is shuttled down to a lower level, one at a time, to eventually start their approach. Holding is a procedure you will become very familiar with, and will form an important part of your ability to demonstrate that you can fly the aeroplane, maintaining height to the required standard, and navigating with reference to VOR and NDB navigational aids. Deviating from any in-flight holding procedure would incur the risk of excursion beyond the perimeters of established holding areas, established in accordance with PAN's OPS. The shape and terminology of a holding pattern is shown here. In flying the holding pattern, all turns are to be made at an angle of 25 degrees or at a rate of 3 degrees per second, a rate 1 turn, whichever requires the lesser bank. All the procedures depict tracks that pilots will be able to maintain, making allowances for known wind by applying corrections both to heading and timings. If for any reason a pilot is unable to conform to the procedures for normal conditions, air traffic control should be informed as soon as possible. Holding patterns are to be flown at the speeds illustrated in this table. There are 3 methods of joining a holding pattern based upon the heading of the aircraft as it approaches the holding fix. These joining methods are more commonly known as entry procedures or entry sectors. Each sector has a 5-degree overlap, within which the pilot has the choice of either of the adjacent sectors. The first entry procedure to examine is the parallel entry. The parallel entry procedure is used by aircraft approaching the holding fix from a specific sector. This sector is an arc 110 degrees wide, starting from a line parallel to the inbound segment of the hold. Therefore, in the example on screen, all aircraft arriving with a heading from 090 degrees to 200 degrees will use the parallel entry procedure. The procedure follows that when the aircraft arrives overhead the fix, the pilot changes heading to parallel the inbound track of the hold. This track is maintained for 1 minute, depending on the hold, after which the pilot turns towards the hold for a rate 1 turn, so that the aircraft either goes direct to the fix or it captures the inbound segment. On reaching the fix, the pilot will fly the normal holding pattern, as shown. In fact, with the 5-degree overlap, a Sector 1 parallel join is permissible on all headings from 085 clockwise up to and including 205. The second entry procedure to examine is the offset entry. This sector is an arc 70 degrees wide, starting from a line parallel to the inbound segment of the hold, angled away from the holding side. Therefore, in the example on screen, all aircraft arriving with a heading from 090 degrees to 020 degrees will use the offset entry procedure. Upon reaching the fix, the aircraft is turned onto a heading which is 30 degrees divergent from the inbound track. This is maintained for approximately 1 minute, after which the pilot will turn to capture the hold track and return to the fix. On reaching the fix, the pilot will fly the normal holding pattern, as shown. Again, because of overlap, the Sector 2 offset join is permissible for magnetic headings of 015 clockwise through 095. 095. The third entry procedure to examine is the direct entry procedure. This entry sector is an arc 180 degrees wide and covers the remaining area of approaches to the fix. Therefore, in the example on screen, all aircraft arriving with a heading from 200 degrees to 020 degrees will use the direct entry procedure. Upon reaching the fix, the pilot turns the aircraft to follow the normal holding pattern, rolling wings level on the outbound track of the hold. Again, and this is the most likely scenario, especially for student pilots, the Sector 3 direct join is permissible for magnetic headings of 195 clockwise through 025. This completes the 3 entry procedures to a hold. Holds do vary in their orientation, segment length, speed and direction, so be familiar with the holds at the arrivals area of your planned and alternate destinations. The still air time for flying the outbound entry heading should not exceed 1 minute if at or below 14,000 feet, or 1.5 minutes if above 14,000 feet. Where DME is available, the length of the outbound leg may be specified in terms of distance instead of time. Having entered the holding pattern on the second and subsequent arrivals over the fix, the aeroplane is turned to fly the outbound track, which will most appropriately position the aircraft onto the inbound track. Pilots must compensate for wind during this manoeuvre. So having been instructed to hold at a certain fix, on the second time around the hold, the pilot will report that he is holding at the specified height at the holding fix. When cleared to descend in the hold, the aeroplane should descend as soon as possible. There is no need to wait until over the fix. This process of descending is known as shuttling. Air traffic control will specify a time of departure from the holding pattern, and pilots should adjust their flight pattern within the limits of the established holding procedure in order to leave the holding point at the specified time. A holding pattern is cited with specific bounds and contains the basic holding area and the entry area. The basic holding area at any particular level is the airspace required at that level to encompass a holding pattern based upon allowances for the aircraft, speed, wind effect, timing errors, and holding fix characteristics. Entry to this area includes the airspace required to accommodate the specified entry procedures. A buffer area surrounds this and extends 5 nautical miles beyond the boundary of the holding area, within which the height and nature of obstacles are taken into consideration when determining the minimum usable holding level of the holding pattern associated with the holding area. The minimum permissible holding levels are illustrated here and provide appropriate clearance.